Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to a mix of revenge, neighbors from hell and malicious compliance stories. In today's video, a neighbor claims that OP's shared driveway belongs to him entirely and then ends up losing a huge portion of the driveway. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Don't Skip the Line, Jerkwad." So this story takes place many years ago when I was young, an innocent-ish kid, and I went to my local office supplies store. I don't remember what it was, but it doesn't matter. I biked over there because it was really close and I lived in a town where like everyone had bikes and this other guy locks up at the rack next to me. We both walk into the same store, get our respective things and I go over to the checkout. Keep in mind that I was like 12 or 13 and was really short at the time. This guy walks confidently over and shoulders me out of the way to go first. What the hell? What kind of jerk pushes a kid out of the way to get into a line with a population of 1, which is me? Cashier sees this and the conversation is as follows. Cashier raises eyebrows. "Sir, please get back behind him." Jerkwad. "But I have to. It's for my senior project. It's due tomorrow, you know." It was 6 PM on a Saturday. Cashier. "Sir, you can just wait in line. He only has tape and pencil lead. You have 5 sheets of construction paper and half a shopping cart full of different items." Jerkwad. "Come on man, I really have to get this done." Cashier. "Sir, if you don't get back behind him, I will call the manager." Now, I really did not think this cashier would really do that because the offices were pretty far away and it seemed like a pretty stupid thing to call a manager for, but Jerkwad boy gets back behind me grumbling about missing football practice or some dumb thing. I appreciated what the cashier did and I told him that. The cashier said that he hated people who bully smaller kids and he really hated football players. So I smiled and said that I could maybe make Jerkwad's day a bit worse. So anyway, I get out and frantically unlock my bike so I have enough time to do what I really want to do to his bike. I go over and I shift his back gears up a couple and the front one down to 1. Then I bike to a safe distance and waited for the show. Now, if you don't own a bike or never have, it is really jarring to start to pedal and then your bike shifts gears, especially if you didn't know it was going to happen. It's kind of like when you are sleeping and you feel like you are suddenly falling. And by the way guys, just to interject, have you ever had that feeling that you're like suddenly falling down a cliff or something just when you're about to sleep, or maybe it's some phase of the sleep that is not very deep? I always thought that only I have that. It's a super strange feeling, but I kind of like it. Anyway, onto the story, and it is a pain, at least for the couple of bikes I've had over the years, to change the front gear because it is pretty big and it clicks a lot before settling into place. Also, you have just put a large portion of your weight against something that is pushing back while simultaneously trying to balance on your bike. So I sit and wait for a bit and realize that the cashier must have been scanning his items really slowly, or Jerkwad was dumping all of his change on the poor cashier. But eventually he came out with his plastic shopping bags and hooked them onto the handles of his bike and attempted to pedal away. Attempted. I heard a clunk and he kind of jumped and swung his handlebars around to try and balance. About half of his things flew into the bushes and he nearly fell off. I peeled off, my good deed for the day was done. And yeah guys, that is exactly what should happen to bullies, and I have to say that was a pretty surprisingly satisfying petty revenge. But then again also I have to admit I kind of miss riding a bicycle because, to be frank, I'm not really brave enough to ride a bicycle in Thailand. All I am brave enough to do is ride a motorcycle here. Do you frequently still ride your bike? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, "Never Upset the Billing Department." I was a part of this story, though it was not my own revenge. Many years ago, my husband had a specific nationwide internet provider. Think Yahoo before Yahoo existed. About 3 years later, he is at a sporting event and he wins a free year of service from his company. He is excited because he can keep his screen name, etc. He spent a lot of time online, and this was when dial-up was the only thing available. Ah, the internet dark ages. At the end of the year, he contacts them to give them updated payment info. The billing department was apparently not getting along with the marketing department, so the billing people told him not to worry about it until they contact him. Every year or so after that, he would try to give them payment information. We had free internet for 7 years or so because of this. Every time we would contact billing, they would laugh, look at the notes on the account, and tell us not to worry about it. After all, it was being charged to the marketing department and did not count against billing in any way. Until the VP of marketing realizes that it is her name on the approvals for our years of free service. Apparently, they finally did an audit of all the books and realized what had been happening. It seems billing did this to a lot of people that got the free year of service when we got it. Marketing kept calling us to get us to pay for all the free service. Our lawyer and the billing department agreed we didn't have to pay them back for anything. They also told us to not talk to marketing, so we didn't. It took them 2 more years to get their stuff figured out. We had free internet during those 2 years too. And Ripe Stars, do you still remember your first internet provider? I am almost 99% sure that our first dial-up internet provider was AOL, aka America Online. Which in hindsight, to be honest, is kind of surprising given that I grew up in Europe. Also, we kept paying for their damn email account for I think close to 15 years or something. In addition, while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled, "We cannot share a driveway anymore? Fine, enjoy your tiny driveway." When my SO and I moved into our house some 20 years ago, our neighbors on one side were an elderly husband and wife who we got along with very well. Our 2 houses shared a driveway that ran from the street to the alley behind the houses, and we each had our own parking area in the back. The driveway was set up so that about 2 feet of it was on our property with the rest on the neighbor's property. The driveway was right up against the neighbor's house and about 8 feet from ours. We all made it a point to not park in the driveway so that we didn't block each other's way and had no problems for 15 years. Sadly, the sweet neighbors died about 5 years ago and their house was bought by Mike, a man who regularly bought old houses to rent or resell and who clearly didn't care about anything except profit. The first time that we ever met Mike was right after a car had hit our house. The driver had a stroke and lost control of his car while driving down our street. The front of his car was actually inside our house. So here we are, freaking out because a car is literally sticking out of our house, surrounded by a crowd of onlookers, police and emergency workers, when Mike saunters over and introduces himself by saying that the whole driveway plus part of our garage are on his property. We tell him that he is wrong, but that this is not the time to discuss it and we will get back to him later. We do some investigating and discover that the property line is exactly where we knew it to be and that the map Mike was using had the property line overlay off by about 2 feet. Nevertheless, Mike continues to harass us and tell us that we cannot use the driveway any longer because he is going to rent the place out and it would be a liability to have us driving on his property. Fine then. We had often talked about putting in our own driveway, so now was as good a time as any. Mike was quite pleased when we told him that, at least that was until he learned that the new driveway was going in right next to his driveway along our property line. He tried to talk us into putting the driveway on the other side of our house, obviously, so that he would still have use of the full existing driveway, which sat 2 feet onto our property. The look on Mike's face when he saw where the surveyor drew our property line was absolutely priceless. The line left just barely enough room for a car to fit on his side, and he could not widen his driveway because it already ran right next to his house. So we used a chunk of our lawn on that side to install a nice wide driveway with riverstone gravel so that it would be obvious where our driveway ended and Mike's very narrow blacktop driveway began. Mike never spoke to us again. Added, by the way, to answer a few questions, Mike rented the house to a nice family with kids shortly after we put the driveway in. They bought the house from Mike last year and we get along great. I give them produce, milk and eggs whenever I have extras, and her kids are very polite. Their driveway is still wide enough to drive through and they just park in the spaces at the back of their house, so that is not a problem for them. And by the way, Ripe Stars, when it comes to neighbor stories, what are your favorite topics? I feel, judging by the analytics from YouTube, the most popular videos usually are about property either getting stolen or somehow mishandled by neighbors or other people. However, let me know what you enjoy the most about the neighbor stories in the comments. Your feedback is very much appreciated. And the next one is a little bonus story from our own subreddit posted by user PokePlayer984, and it is titled "How I Got Rid of a Manager I Hated." Now, before I begin, note that what I did was wrong. I accept that, however, understand that I did what I did to expose this manager and get them away from the store I work at. I am not ashamed of what I did. If given the choice, I would do it again. Onto the story. Background: at the time this story took place, I was a sales associate. I will just say that I worked at a super center. At the time I worked in the hardware section. I worked in other areas before that, but I enjoyed my about a decade time there before moving on due to certain stress-related reasons and moving to a different area of the store. I had a love and hate relationship with the job. There would be things I enjoyed, like mixing paint for customers, things I liked, my close-by coworkers, things I disliked, entitled customers. And then there was one of the things I hated, which is the manager. In truth, you would be hard-pressed to find somebody who actually liked this particular manager. Even the other managers didn't like her. However, they really couldn't do much. What did she do that was so bad? Her most egregious offense was taking whatever sales associate she wanted for a project. Didn't matter if you were under her or not, she would take you away to do a project even if another manager gave you a project to do. She even had the gall to call for a specific person over the intercom just to do a project. Which was, by the way, against the rules. Managers had to physically walk up to you and ask if you were available. I was one of the few willing to research the rules and find ways to stand up to her. In my mind, she was a bully that had to be dealt with. I knew what she was doing was wrong and would not be willing to do projects, especially if I was doing one for my direct manager. I even made it a point that she had to ask me directly or I wouldn't do it. How did she get away with this for so long? Because no one was willing to report her to HR, not even the other managers. This was mainly due to them being guilty of it too, but at least they learned quickly and never did it again. She was far more habitable of this act. Now, I will also point out another job we had at the time. In the afternoon, sales associates would be called over to fix up grocery before the 5 PM rush hit. Trust me, the place got bad sometimes. It also didn't help that we had to restock. At least you had 3 hours to do the job. Still, the whole restock thing felt unfair. I mean, you sometimes have a lot to do. At least my direct manager was a kind of old lady who knew I was trying and understood the problems we had. So she didn't mind when I didn't finish my work. She was one of the good ones. Anyways, let's get to the day it happened and what I had done. At the time, this bully manager ran the grocery area. I was working a 10 AM to 7 PM shift that day. They rotated but were often evening/closing shifts for me. I was assigned pop and water at the time. I had zoned it up and went to look for the restock, but I couldn't find it. With that being the case, I went to lunch. When I got back from lunch, she was upset. She hunted me down and dragged me back over, telling me I had to do it. However, I fully believed she set up the restock during my lunch since I couldn't find it earlier. She had done this before, which, while not against the rules, is just not right. As such, I didn't do it. I wanted to teach her a lesson. I just waited for her to leave and left to my area. Eventually, it was 7 p.m. I was about to clock out and leave when Bully Manager found me. She was livid. No one had done the restock for Pop and Water and she dragged me back. She told me that I wasn't allowed to leave until I got it done. She then had me go to the back room to take care of it. Now here is something to understand. We were strict about overtime at the time. As such, regardless of the reasons, managers were not allowed to keep you after for overtime. They had to be responsible and assign it to you. And oh, did I forgot to mention it was a Friday when this happened? She was so mad, she forgot to assign me overtime. I waited until she was gone and then I went to the time clock. I clocked out. They allowed a few minutes of overtime for unforeseen reasons, in other words last minute customer, and I then snuck out making sure she didn't see me. How did I not get into trouble for this? Here comes the next part. The next day, Saturday, I worked. She never reported me, it was also Bully Manager's day off. Now, I was still mad about what happened, however, I realized I had 2 or 3 managers above her I was friends with and could confide in. One of them was there that day, so I had a sit down and explained most of the situation. I explained how during the fix-up of grocery how I couldn't find the restock for my area and how I was treated by Bully Manager. That she was mean to me and that she tried to make me stay after without assigning me overtime. I even brought up the theory of how she might have set up the restock during my lunch. I told him how I felt that was unfair and that she didn't get anyone else to do it when I wasn't available. She definitely had a habit of making you be the one to do it. What I didn't tell him was how I was doing this to teach her a lesson. He said he would have a talk with her. At this time though, I had the next 2 days off, so I don't know what happened exactly. When I got back, I had found out that I was taken off the zone and restock of the grocery. I found out that due to the incident, an investigation was finally being done on Bully Manager and I wasn't allowed to work with her until further notice. This also meant no projects from her. I was happy about that. There is sadly no celebration of her getting fired. In the end, to save face, she transferred to a different branch and we never saw her again. I was put back onto the zone and restock, but we never had that problem of those restocks not being ready again. At least they were there every time. Eventually, it just went to afternoon rezone of grocery and a team was assigned to restock it in the afternoon. Like I said, what I did was wrong, however, I would do it again in a heartbeat. And thank you very much PokePlayer for posting this awesome story, and in my opinion, some of the best revenge stories are always the ones that go against awful, unfair managers. Few stories are more satisfying than this. And Ripe Stars, with this we have unfortunately reached the end of today's video. However, if you cannot get enough of my stories, then I would highly suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up at any moment in the left corner of the screen, which includes over 1000 Ripe stories. In addition, if you would like to share one of your own stories, then please head on over to r/ripestories on Reddit, where you can post your own story and there is a good chance that I might read it in a video. In addition, please also check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos that you won't find on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, your daily support is very much appreciated and I hope to see you again tomorrow.